What is Dan from Solutions for the Firearm Industry? We're back with another episode here. So we're going to talk trade shows today. Near and dear to my heart because we have three of them coming up in the next week or so. We are headed actually to Sports Inc. on their fall show. The goals, the inaugural goals, Gun Owners Advocacy and Leadership Summit in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be down there for a couple days, and then the next best sports show down in Fort Worth. So three trade shows back to back. Just wanted to talk through some of the pieces of it in case any of you guys that are looking at it. Much like gun shows, they have their own intricacies, and kind of once you do a couple of them, you get the routine down. But we're going to talk through it today. So mostly just talking. I have a couple of images maybe later on here. So why do we do trade shows? We do trade shows to get our name out there. It's a form of marketing and also to connect and talk to the industry. So 50-50, the success that I have on the trade shows is exposing our product, LiveScan and Merlin, to new customers, as well as almost just as importantly, making some business connections and partnerships with other vendors, other software companies, other industries, and getting our name and cards to some of those dealers or manufacturers so they can use our product or refer our product type pieces. So that's why we do it. We get out there, we meet customers that are in the area to reaffirm and establish or reconnect with some of those customers, to meet new customers that are out there, as well as industry partnerships and whatnot. Costs depends on the show. They range from it's typically a square footage price. So Goals, for example, is newer, so they're and it's Knoxville, so it's a little bit less or more inexpensive. That runs about $15 or $18 a square foot. Most of the shows are in that $20 to $25 per square foot. And then SHOT Show is expensive. So SHOT Show is in the $40 to $45 per square foot range. So the smallest booth size typically is a 10 by 10. So for say SHOT Show, it's a $4 to $5,000 booth. For most of the other shows, they run between 2 and 2,500, and then the goal show coming up is approximately 18. I think it's 1,800 for that. What do you get with that though? So in that 10 by 10 booth, you basically just get access to that chunk of concrete. So you will get a back wall that is about 8 feet high, typically what they call piped and draped. So if you can picture like scaffolding pipes and then some draping curtains you might see on a table or whatnot, it is basically just the boundary of your booth open to the aisle typically. And then you'll have an 8 foot back wall and then like a 30-inch, 36-inch side walls. Those can be taken down depending on how your neighbors want to interact with you. The sidewalls, anyway, the back wall typically cannot be, but that's it. Typically, there is no carpet, there is no electrical, there is no etc. It is effectively a 10 by 10 chunk of concrete that you get access to, and then it is piped and draped. So again, 8 foot back wall, 30 some inch sidewalls, and that's what you get. So you got to set everything up inside of that. So booth design. So do you want flooring? That's either you got to bring it or you got to rent it. Tables, again, either you got to buy and bring it or you got to rent it. Chairs, etc. There's typically nothing that's in that booth besides that chunk of concrete, and you got to figure out what you want to do. And those all nickel and dime add up. Round numbers, like a table might be $150 to rent, depending on where it's at. Chairs are like $75. So it's a little ridiculous on some of the pricing, but it is what it is, and it's cheaper than going to a store, buying it, throwing it away, type thing. So another piece to consider on the costs of if you're going to do a show is how do you get your stuff in there? So hand carry versus freight. Typically, there will be some type of warehousing agency associated. Freeman is kind of the big one that deals with a lot of the gun show type stuff. And they have the ability to receive in their warehouse. They will then forklift it into or to your booth at your move-in time. And then they will take away the empty crate and bring it back after move out. And then they will position it to be shipped. They charge round numbers about $1.50 a pound to handle that freight in and out. And that's not the shipping cost. On top of that, then is going to be your LTL or freight costs or UPS, whatever cost you're going to use to move that stuff. And that can add up quickly. But for the warehousing company to basically receive it, move it to your booth, take care of the empty container, bring that container back, and then stage that container or crate for shipment out, about $1.50 a pound. And then on top of that's going to be shipping pieces. So, hinted at it on the electrical and services piece. For us, we typically will get electrical. We have computers to demo and software to do. So I need power. You may or may not need that. That price is variable depending on the venue. If you get it early, you can typically get it for about 150, 175. And then if you get it late, quote unquote, after the cutoff, which is typically 3 weeks to a month before the show, so they can bulk all the orders and be more efficient with it. The early order piece, typically that electrical is going to cost you about $200. And again, nothing's included in that trade show booth minus the access to the 10 by 10. Wi-Fi is another one. We've been lucky so far, been able to use my phone and a hotspot that's been enough to carry it, but our product doesn't depend on it. There are some cloud providers that have to have Wi-Fi, so they got to pay extra for that, and that is all over the map depending on the city and the piece of it. Badges. Most booths will come with a certain number of employee or worker exhibitor badges. So far, it's pretty consistent at about five. So on a 10 by 10 booth, you get five. If you have a 20 by 20, it goes up to 8 or 10. And those are all included in the cost of the booth. So you can get your employees in. And then many of the shows will also have some kind of a guest badge policy as well. Sometimes it is in that five number. Sometimes it is five exhibitor, which allows you access to the floor at all times, and then X number of guest badges. So it depends on the show, and you can ask about that as you're signing up or looking into it. But there is a badging requirement. Typically, you have to have the names of your employees or exhibitors entered early. You can pick up those badges, they're pre-printed, and then the guest passes are just kind of a voucher that they redeem at ticketing to get in. So you can use those guest passes for prospects, for other customers, for VIP or high value customers that you want to get into the show and comp them in, however you want to use them. Travel. So you want to look at the travel piece of this as you get in and out. If you're driving in, you got to understand what parking looks like. If you're flying in, you got to understand what the timetables look like. Typically on the booth or on the show schedule, they will have explicit move-in dates and times, and you got to look at what zone or area you're in based on if you picture the big convention floor, the heart and center of that floor is going to be the first move-in date and typically the largest and most complex booths. And then as you move out closer to the warehouse doors, they will try to stage that piece so they're not tripping on each other with all the empties and the containers and all that kind of stuff. So you got to look at when you can actually get access to the space and when you're supposed to be in and when you have to have the booth all set up. And then depending on the complexity of your booth, how much time it takes you to set up. We pretty much hand carry everything in. We have a fabric back wall that we stand up. We have a couple pop-ups, those skinny 6 foot some high stands. We typically will rent a table and then we drape it with our own tablecloth and some other stuff. So our setup is say 2 to 3 hours by the time we get everything set up, settled, organized how we want it. But there are some other booths that they are very complex and they can take days to get set up and lots of man hours. Hotel is another piece you got to look into as well, and the cost associated with that. Many times the shows will have a block that is associated, kind of 50-50 for us. I typically will book through a loyalty program. I use Hilton for the most part. So I can usually book cheaper through my Hilton app with my status that I'm at compared to the block, but that's indifferent on it. But just make sure you understand where it's at, walking distance versus non-walking distance. For example, like SHOT Show, it is invaluable for us to be able to walk back to the hotel room in case we miss something or we need to take a break or whatever, as opposed to up and down the strip in Vegas where your only chance is either an Uber or the shuttle bus type deal. So for us, we stay right by the convention centers there and we can walk back and forth to the booth. It's invaluable to us. And I try to do that too for the other shows, is try to find something that's in a couple blocks so I don't have to have the extra cost of an Uber, a taxi, etc. on this. Marketing. So, emails out to your customers, let them know you're coming, social media, let them know you're going, let them know you're going to be there, pictures of your booth as you get set up. And then the other thing that we do is on signature block on our email, we always put what show is coming up, what booth number we're at, and the dates on there, just in case someone sees it. I don't know if anybody does, but we do that. So, one thing that is always amusing or interesting, and I fell victim to it too. First time we did a trade show was SHOT Show. Spent a bunch of money, and somebody came to the booth and said, "Okay, I want to buy it." No idea how to transact that. right? Was not even thinking about someone was going to buy it, should have been. And, I basically said, oh, go to the website and here, and I don't think that guy ever bought. So lost that sale. So from there, we actually will have an iPad with the website up that people can put in their information and they can transact the order for a system right there. Or we will take one of the demo computers and we will do the transaction there. So make sure you have a plan or a method to capture that sale. You just spent a ton of money on it, and make sure you have a method of getting that done. Another thing to consider is food. Typically, depends on the show and the rules on stuff, is coolers and whatnot, but food can get really expensive. It's also usually not the most healthy food that's at the trade show. So we will typically bring in lunch meat and cheeses and snacks, that kind of stuff, so we can make some sandwiches or have some wraps or whatever. Hand sanitizer is recommended. You're touching lots of people, shaking a lot of hands. Almost inevitably at SHOT Show, everybody gets day 3, day 4. Everyone's got some kind of crud, especially on the longer shows. So something to keep in mind too. And then I mentioned it above of why do we do it. So networking is a big piece of it. We've had a couple shows where we've had very little sales just because of the timing and the time of year, but the networking made up for it. New connections, new possibilities, new opportunities, new partnerships. If you When you're there, and make sure you can staff the booth such, allow time for you to walk around and meet those other businesses and talk to those other businesses and see how you can work together or who's doing what or what's all going on. The shows are a great chance to get everybody kind of in the same spot. So, so high level 101 trade show stuff, kind of peeling back the curtain on how that works a little bit. Probably the vast majority of it's not going to be that appealing, but some of you guys that have our manufacturer or looking to do some things that haven't got into it, kind of a quick rundown of it. Again, a 10 by 10 booth is going to run you somewhere between 2 and 4 grand. At the show, you got to add in electrical, figure $200. You got to add in a table and chairs, another couple $100. Flooring, a couple $100. And then you have the cost and per diem, hotel, travel, and food on top of that. So a typical trade show is going to run you round numbers 4 to 5 grand on a normal one. SHOT Show, different beast. Our budget for SHOT Show is closer to 20 grand because of the size of the booth we have, the cost of the hotels, the people we bring. It's a week-long trip. So just round numbers for you guys, some discussion pieces. So if you like what we're doing, hit that like and share on your screen. So we're up on Amazon Music, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and then any RSS feeds you can pull it down on, just the audio piece of it. So, but hit that like and share. Tell people about what we're doing. Check out our website, petersonfarmsusa.com. There you can find out information on our 2 products, Cerberus LiveScan, which is the fingerprinting EFT PDF solution for NFA transactions, both Form 1 and Form 4s. Your data, your customers, all local on in-house for you, not selling the data to anybody else. And then Merlin is our distribution warehouse feed tool. So the ability to pull in, we're up to 14 warehouses. We just added one this morning, actually. So 14 warehouses, we can order from 8 of them. And here's the list down below. And I'm really happy to announce that Allen Arms is coming online with their data feed. So that was the one I added this morning, waiting on a couple more pieces to test, and I'll get that out in the next version of Merlin. And that's available. So 14 warehouses that you can see the data from, 8 you can order from. I think it's pretty cool. It's neat. So again, thanks for joining us on this episode. My name's Dan. This is Solutions for the Firearm Industry, and hope you check us out next time. Thank you.